Welcome to Ready, Set, Hunt. Whether you're an aspiring, new, or seasoned hunter, join us as we share our experiences and learn from other hunters around the country. And we're live.
ESPN Top 10.
We've literally already done this breakdown in a past episode.
I don't care. It's ingrained in me.
Oh,
It's part
man.
of who I am.
Well, spring is over, Chris. Summer's here.
It's a little warm. I got a mosquito bite. Well, no, I can't say bite. I got him right before he was about to bite. That means
Dodged a
it's
bullet
summer,
there.
right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's there's a lot of bugs in Montana too. Lots of bugs. Well, we can
Ticks. You know what's funny? After we got back, because this is our spring bear hunt recap episode. My social feeds are full of tick repellents, like so many different options. I'm like, this would have been great. This would have been great before.
Yeah. Well, don't you feel silly that you didn't use any tick repellents when we went out?
I don't know. I didn't get bit.
You didn't get bit, but I think there is a little background here. So there were 4 of us that went on this bear trip. 2 of us treated our clothes with permethrin, which is a tick repellent. Other 2 guys did not treat their clothes. And do you want to know who had way more ticks on their clothes? The guys that didn't treat their clothes.
I was chemical free. I used essential oils, and they kept them moving. They were the ticks were on the move. But
did you put essential oils on your legs?
Yeah, I put on my boots, around the edges of my gaiters and my neck and all that stuff. But the thing is they never were comfortable enough to set up shop. And while I sacrificed many upon little stones, because that was kind of the running joke with my buddy that was with me, yeah, it was a fun time.
It's good. Yeah,
it was gnarly. It was gnarly. Like, obviously, where you are matters. So we were in a very heavily wooded area and going through a lot of tall grass and pines and fallen like trees. And so at the end of the day, it's a nice tick land there. Then the second half of the trip, where that little ending, I had like 0, or actually I had maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah. Well, all that matters, Chris, is that you smelled like a young living distributor.
I smelled great
while you're prancing through the woods.
I smelled great.
You're like every stay-at-home mom in Salt Lake City's dream of a man.
Hey, if I can do field testing for those products, I'm happy to.
Oh man, yeah, we're gonna have some young living reps on here for insect repellent using their essential oils.
Still not sponsored. Ready, Set, Hunt podcast.
Brought to you by Young Living Essential Oils. Oh man,
I know no one else thinks this is as comical as we do, but
that's fine.
You all have inside jokes out there with, and this is why you go hunting. You make memories. We're now giggling about essential oils.
Mm-hmm.
So. Hey, no, but kick this off. Tell us what this episode's about, and just give me an intro into spring bear hunting. I'm giving it away, but for new listeners.
Yeah, well, I think we can just title this one Spring Bear Hunting 2025. Lessons learned, failures.
It kicked our, I want to say the other one, but.
No, I mean it was fun. Yes, it's true. We did not fill a bear tag, but we had a good time. We did learn a lot, and I think that's really the most important thing. Wouldn't you say?
I think from the standpoint of hunts to come and where to find game, this was a massive success. It was like a huge scouting mission, and it went well. It went very well.
Yeah. In terms of scouting, yes. And the reason we say that is, aside from black bears, we saw pretty much everything that the state of Montana has to offer in terms of game species.
What did we
We
see, Peter? What did we see?
we saw a mess of elk, and we saw mule deer, and we saw moose. Actually, quite a few moose. Not that we'll ever draw a tag to hunt moose in
We
Montana,
probably
but
saw a total of 7 moose,
yeah. We saw
and we're talking
antelope.
hundreds of elk. At least I
Hmm.
saw hundreds of elk. I probably saw close to 300 mule deer,
Well, I didn't see that
and
many mule deer, but I saw
there
hundreds of
was.
whitetail deer.
Oh, I'm sorry. I saw way more whitetails than I did
Yeah.
muleys.
I was very surprised by that, honestly. With where we were, I was expecting that to be like pure mule deer country. Barely any mule deer, almost all whitetail,
Yeah.
which I think is maybe a little bit of an indicator of the state of mule deer, at least where we were in the state of Montana. Not doing so great, it doesn't seem. But lots of whitetail, and we even saw some pronghorn in
Hmm.
honestly in places I did not expect to see pronghorn.
I
Um,
also I also experienced like a 16-year-old kid with a subwoofer pulling up around the corner in some of the bushes as I was walking because the sage grouse
oh, okay. I was like,
would
when did you run into a 16?
just hammer the base with their wings on the ground.
Was it? No, it wasn't sage grouse. Was it?
Sharptail
It
or
must have been rough grouse.
might have been rough.
Yeah,
I mean,
roughies.
it was the gnarliest bass sound
Hmm.
with those wings on the dirt of the ground.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I saw a lot of grouse. It was more than anything. It really was like a nature viewing trip. We got to see lots of wildlife, which which is great. And we went to shoot a black bear. You want to know how many black bears we saw? You're probably thinking I'm going to say zero, but we did see one. We saw one black bear, and then you guys saw four grizzlies, right?
We did. Yep. Yeah, when we split up second half of the trip, and then when I say split up, we're just going up different logging trails or
Yeah.
walkable 2 tracks into some more open topography than that we would have liked to actually be hunting the whole time. So that's the thing about when you're e-scouting and you're getting out west and you're coming from the Midwest. Um, I don't know how much we need to touch on it, but it's self-explanatory. If you don't have the time to like be out there and scout and put your eyeballs on the actual land in conjunction with e-scouting, it's really difficult to go into even like burn areas. And I know like there's a lot of guys out there that talk about how impactful e-scouting is, and then they seem to, at least in some of the videos and things that are shared, they get out to those locations and it seems to be advantageous, like they were successful with their e-scouting and they don't have to really adjust. That hasn't been our experience, um, which i i I almost would rather have. Like
Hmm.
I like the aspect of learning what I don't know, and we're not going to like whine about it getting out there because it does ruin your trip. To be honest,
In a way, yeah.
it can really impact your trip from a speed standpoint. If you're expecting to see volume and you're out there for, what were you out there for? How many days before I spotted the black bear?
We were out there for 4 days before we spotted that first black bear.
And I he's like what 2 miles or more,
As a crow
something like,
flies 2 miles, but
yeah. And
yeah.
then I put into practice the thing that we always have told ourselves we're going to do now is we're not going to like, oh, that's a opportunity, but we'll wait and look for something else. We've kind of made up our mind, at least to this point, of don't divert from a possible opportunity. And we still
Right.
had enough time in the day because we spotted him 3 o'clock, and we didn't get over to him until sunset, which was because it was just a terrible hike. But we'll get into
Yeah.
that.
Well,
Tell me
yeah.
about why. We'll come back. Let me ask you this: intro bear hunting, spring bear hunting, for those that are listening. Like, why do we do it? Where did it come from? Give me a little
Yeah.
history for what you know, and take it from there.
Um so spring black bear really kind of more of a western thing. Not many of the eastern states have a spring bear season for black bears. So it's becoming an increasingly popular hunt the past, I don't know, even just past few years. I think guys are liking the opportunity to do something other than turkey hunting in the spring, and black bears is a lot bigger than a turkey, and it's a different style hunt. It can be a
A lot
backcountry
cheaper
hunt.
than elk or mule deer or
Yeah,
stuff
it's
like that.
it's an affordable tag. They're usually in some states they're readily available over the counter, so you don't have to build up preference points or do the draw systems or anything. You can literally just roll up to some of these states and buy a black bear tag. And so it's a great opportunity, and it's fun. It gets you into a lot of the same places that you might do elk hunting or mule deer hunting. And so um, that was kind of our decision to do that, is just to try something new. We'd never hunted bears before. Bears are pretty much everywhere in the lower 48. They're very prolific across the landscape, and there's a lot of opportunity for them, and their populations aren't hurting. So it's just one of those animals that's just kind of, it's just a great opportunity, and different kind of meat, a lot of fat. And if you're into homeopathic type stuff, their fat is excellent if you render it down to make bear oil and stuff. It has a lot of uses. So yeah, just kind of a different flavor of hunting. And so yeah, we decided, let's head out to, I'll say the state. Let's head out
Well,
to
you
Montana.
decided. You
Yeah, well, that's
decided.
true. I decided, me and a friend, me and my friend Nick decided we're gonna go out this spring together, because Nick is really, really more interested and into bear hunting. He does some of it back here in Minnesota too, and so he really wanted to experience it out west. And so he and I decided to go out, and then I think Chris was having a little bit of the jealousy bug, a little bit, and feeling maybe a little bit of FOMO.
You know
And
what my honest, if I'm completely honest, what my hesitation was?
what's that?
Ticks. It comes back to ticks because I'm just like I don't want to sleep on a floorless tent. I call me what you want. Like I don't really care. Like I'm a grown man now and I prefer not to just be sleeping in a pile of bugs or ants. Like I've done some crazy things uh in my younger days that I don't prefer to do now. I'm just getting older and that's what kind of like and I guess from a budget standpoint and time standpoint, we had just come back from elk hunting. I was a little burnt out from that
Mm-hmm.
experience and but yeah, you were going and I kept kind of just gently tiptoeing around and then started asking if anyone wanted to go with and found
Yeah.
someone and it just worked out and he's like, "Yep, we're going." And uh ended up actually flying out there, which is a way different experience. So,
Yeah, not me. So Nick and I, we drove out about 4 days before Chris and Micah is the other guy who came on the trip, before they flew in. And so we got out there a little ahead of time. We drove out all of our gear, rifles and stuff, so that way they wouldn't have to check those and do the whole flying with the firearm thing, which isn't really a huge deal, but it's just a little inconvenient. So we drove out early, and we got in, a handful of days of hunting before they came out. What we were really hoping was that Nick and I were going to get into an area that we had e-scouted, thought it looked really good, and we were hoping that we'd be able to have spotted and found maybe at least a couple bears, 2-3 bears or something beforehand, so that when they got out there, it would just be like
which is
game
not a
time.
crazy expectation when
No,
talking to
no,
the
not
game
at all.
wardens and getting our inside information from some of our
Hmm.
Montana contacts and
Yeah.
you should expect to see a bear.
Yeah, but the biggest problem that we ran into with the area we went, and I'm sorry if you're listening to this and you're hoping I'm going to start saying specific locations. I'm not going to do that. I will do descriptions of areas,
There
types
were
of areas, but
mountains.
I'm
There were some
and there
mountains.
are mountains, but I'm not going to say which ones. That's just kind of a hunting thing. You don't give away your spots unless you're talking to a buddy and willing to part with that spot, basically.
Yep.
Um, so the first spot we went to was, I mean, from a map, looked amazing. It checked all the boxes. It had It had water. It had really good green covered south facing slopes. It had a decent amount of cover nearby. The elevation seemed like it would be pretty good. But the problem with bear hunting is that when you get out there, if you're not from the area that you're hunting or living out there, you don't really know what snow levels are going to be like. And when you're hunting spring bears, your hunt is very determined by where the snow level is on the mountains, because bears like to focus on eating the really fresh green plants and forbs and stuff on south facing slopes of mountainsides. And they usually like to eat right around 500 feet below snow line. And so if you had a really snowy winter like Montana did this last year, that snow line is going to be lower elevation, whereas you kind of want you it just kind of depends on where you're hunting, but snow line really determines that hunt. And so this first area that Nick and I got to, this was our plan A. We were like, man, this place looks awesome. So we started hiking in, and we got about 3.5 miles into our hike out of what was a planned or anticipated 5 miles to like our first base camp area. And we started getting into snow, like right around 2.5 miles, and not shallow snow either. But the problem was it was all melting. So underneath the snow, it was almost like a stream of water, and then the snow that we were essentially post holing, was what they call, because we're stepping through deep snow with our trekking poles and with our legs. This snow is anywhere from a foot to 3 feet deep in spots. And so we're like, the area that we were trying to get to was another 1,500 feet in elevation up from where we were already hitting snow. And we had to get over a certain mountain pass to really get down into the main hunting area we wanted to hunt, which probably would have been okay, the actual hunting area in terms of snow level. But the places we had to go through to get to that spot, it would have been like, it would have been probably 3+ feet of snow for over a mile. And that's just not realistic. And we were also thinking about Chris and Micah, who were coming behind us to also come hunt, and we're like, we can't put them through this for this area that we don't even 100% know what it looks like. All we know what it looks like is from a map. And the hike in was very, very heavily forested, so we weren't able to see very far ahead either. So we're kind of somewhat going in blind, literally just relying on what we've seen on a 3D map. And so unfortunately we had to pull the plug on that pretty like almost as soon as it started. And then we had to go to plan B and relocate to a different part of the unit, not terribly far away from where we were, but in
It
in
takes
terms
time.
of, it takes time. It was about 2 hours to drive, even though it wasn't really that far in terms of mileage. It's just when you're driving back roads and whatnot, especially when you're driving around areas where not all roads are very straight. It's a lot of winding and stuff. It takes time to get places. So, um, yeah, we had to jump places a few different times. We ran into other hunters. There was a lot of hunting traffic, which we expected to some extent, but not nearly as much as we saw. Just a lot of people out recreating too. It wasn't just hunters. There was a lot of people on side by side zipping around, and lots of campers, lots of RVs, that kind of stuff in some of these public land areas. And so, um, yeah, we didn't see a bear those first 4 days, and then by the time it was time for Chris and Micah to come, we were kind of I think we were on like our plan C or plan D. And all the areas we went to probably held bears, but we just weren't seeing any. And we did a lot of glassing, looked over a lot of country, and just weren't turning up bears until again we got to this spot where Chris and Micah came. So, Chris, I'll kind of let you jump in from there. So, what was your experience like rolling up to our camp area? Your first camp area. This was our third camp area.
Um,
Like, what were your feelings
well,
and
I was in
expectations
like
going into it?
I was decompressing from work, and so I was just enjoying the fact that I'm out there with, but like my Micah who went with me, he and I just graduated from our master's program. So we graduated a week earlier with our master's, and this ended up being kind of like a vacation celebration trip, which we actually graduated from high school together and then ended up getting our masters at the same time, not knowing both of us were going back, but we were going to graduate at the same time. So it was just really like a that camaraderie and brotherhood.
Hmm.
And he has always had a standing invite to come on our hunts and come up to the farm and the family land thing. And he's just never really taken it. In the early years he'd come and be with all the cousins and stuff, but he's just family life and priorities, you know, happen.
Hmm.
So this is really special, and that's like how it felt like. Even flying out, it was just nice to, I guess, be very aware that this is very special. It's not
Yeah.
like it's not a. This isn't going to happen probably again, next year or this fall or anything like that. This is like a very random, special coincidence that it was able to take
Hmm.
place. So coming in, knowing you were out there and you were kind of giving me some updates and letting me know like, hey, this isn't looking as great as we wanted to, or going plan B, plan C. Coming into camp, like you had, stuff set up. I was just like pleasant, pleasant as ever to get out there and all right, this is what we're gonna do. Um, but I did notice coming in, timber was heavy, like from the density standpoint, and there were open clearings, but the clearings are really deceptive because there was so much elevation
Hmm.
in such a short amount of distance.
Well, not only that, but a lot of these clearings, which were generally clear cuts from logging activity in past years, um, the regrowth had already started. Like the new trees that they planted after cutting down the old ones had already started, and
They were a little too tall.
they were just to an age where it was just a little hard to see
Yeah,
in some pockets.
and so
Um,
that's not like this isn't complaining at all or anything like that. It's just you don't know what
mhm,
you're going to get when you get in there. And my plan, at least for me, I wanted to get up high and I wanted to glass. And when I saw that adjacent mountain slope that was sitting at the 2 miles ish away, and it was like vastly open green areas with the yellow flowers and all the stuff the bears like, I wanted to just plug in there. In hindsight, I think I would have gotten up and done that, getting up there in the morning, like late morning, like 10, 11, and just spent time hanging out. I wish I would have
mhm,
done that more versus the more evening focus we had, which
yep,
isn't wrong. It's just, I wish I would have done that.
mhm,
Um, but that's where we saw our bear. There was a lot of open, former logging trails and places for us to walk, which was really great. And we saw bear scat. We're seeing sign. Um, I wouldn't say it was a bad spot at all.
no,
It's just limited in your opportunities because you're going to have those bears come out. Like the scat was fresh, but when I spotted that one, the 2.5 miles away, and we went for it, little did I know it was blister central on both my ankles, and I just thought they were hot spots. So goes to show when you start feeling them, you should stop and tape up right away. But we got up there and it was really hard, and I had been dealing with a little bit under the weather
mhm,
the last 3 weeks, some weird ear virus or something going on, but I had no energy, so it was really 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 the challenging for me to the point where I was like gonna give up, wanted to go to tear mode, like shedding some tears because I just like this is I can't do this, and that's so deflating. And I was like, Peter, go, go shoot the bear, because we're almost at the top and we're on a time crunch. But we got up there, and I mean, we were in his living room.
oh, for sure,
Um,
yeah,
it
scat
was
everywhere.
fresh scat everywhere, and
Hmm.
he looked like a very nice bear from what I was able to glass. It just we got up there and it downpoured. That weather rolled in, and we
Yep.
were literally hiking out the 2 hours to hike out, which how it took us like 5 hours to get up there, didn't it?
It wasn't quite 5. It was so from where we parked the truck, because it should be mentioned that where Chris spotted this bear from, he spotted it at 3 p.m. Um, and as a crow flies from where he was sitting, that bear that ridge line that he was watching and glassing where that bear popped out was about 2.5 miles away as a crow flies. But in order to get to a good access point to get to this mountain, to the other mountain, because I mean, if you were to go straight at that bear from where Chris was, I mean, you're dropping a good couple thousand feet of elevation through really, really thick, dense timber, getting to the bottom where there's a stream. So there would be a stream crossing, and then you'd go right back up another mountain, gaining another, probably 2,500 feet of vertical elevation after a stream crossing, once again through thick vegetation. And so it's that's not very conducive. Whereas we knew that on this ridge system that he'd been watching, that if we got back to our truck, drove out and drove all the way around to kind of to the back side of that mountain, there is actually a trail system that goes up that mountain that would be a little more gradual. It would still be it was still a 2,300 vertical foot climb, and the hike was just a hair over 4.75 miles up. But we figured at least it would be better than just trying to bomb straight up, because it's steep.
To be fair, that whole slope was covered in logging trails and roads, for lack of a better terminology. But the gate at the very beginning was closed, and I at least was expecting that this was going to be at least half that distance up that mountain was going to be traversable with the pickup, as the other side, which we were glassing from, was, and where we had camp, because you could drive a bunch of those roads over there. So that was discouraging coming up to that gate. And that's how, like, using onX or GoHunt, those are fantastic tools when you download those maps and you make sure you have the ability to zoom in and look at, what's accessible.
But they don't tell you everything.
Yeah, they don't tell you everything, and it's a learning game. Yep. You have to go see it for yourself. So long story short, storm rolls in. We're coming down now, and we're just drenched. Our packs are drenched. Everything's drenched.
Yep.
We checked out. We're like, we're going into town, and we're gonna set up shop
so we can dry out our stuff. Basically,
dry out everything. Do some dryers.
Well, and that was like the first big weather we had of that trip. And then for pretty much for the remainder of the trip, for the next 3-4 days, I mean, it was essentially, it rained on and off pretty much the entire time, the next 3 or 4 days.
When I was even glassing, when I saw that bear, or before that I saw that bear, hail came through. It was hailing on Micah and me on top of the mountain. It's like, oh, this is fun. So it was like constant hail for 25 minutes. Just, we were huddled behind a pine tree, kind of tucked in, trying to stay out. And it's funny because I asked you guys, hey, should I bring my tarp? As a straight idiot. And of course we get an hour up and boom, rolls in. Should have had my tarp. I would have pitched my little tent. We would have been able to sit under it. But we also looked back though, because you looked the next day, as we were dead. We were completely dead from a physical standpoint, and my heels were shot. So there's no way I could do that again. My heart wants to, but we looked at different trail access, and there was a more advantageous access that was much further, but it wasn't as crazy steep.
It would have been 6 mile hike instead of the 5 that we had done. So it would have been a little bit longer, but it was about 1,500 feet elevation, 1,500 feet of elevation climb less.
And so we were coming in on that actual slope, so we'd be looking up to identify where the bear was. It was a different way coming in.
But at that point, I mean,
we were dead.
We were dead, and needing to do something a little different. So, I mean, when you're hunting spring bears, there are different tactics, and a lot of it's just going to depend on the type of topography you're in, the area you're in. And so where we were, like we said, it's very heavily timbered. So you can do one of two things. Either you can try and glass openings in the thick timber areas that are going to have a lot of green, and the idea is that a bear is going to come out of those dense woods into those clearings where the fresh green grasses and stuff, and those yellow flowers and everything. They're going to come out and feed, and that's how you're going to locate your bears, and you're going to go make a move. The other thing that a lot of locals do, um, is they will walk logging roads in the evenings, because a lot of times people literally just kind of stumble into bears by walking those logging roads, because the bears will go into those roads because they like traveling on the path of least resistance. But also, a lot of the time on those logging trails is green grass, those flowers, all those kind of things. Um, which we did see some of that on those logging trails. We did a fair amount of walking on logging roads and saw lots of sign and everything, but it was very hit or miss um, on the presence of greenery and certain flowers.
We were probably a week and a half too early.
Yep, at least for that area, because some areas might have been a week late,
Yep.
but that's the thing about spring bear. It's so determined by time of year, and it can be different every year. As you know, wherever you live, your weather varies greatly from it can vary greatly from year to year. And this year we chose a week where we were just a little bit early for the areas we were hunting. If we had been a week later, maybe some more snow would have melted, and there would have been more green up, and bears would have been a little more plentiful, I should say.
Yeah, been out of their dens and
Yep.
moving around. Talk to me a little bit about what went right and what you do differently next time.
Oh man.
Besides the self-explanatory like location, because we found some more advantageous spots to hunt in going
Yeah.
forward
What went
because we didn't find them right away
yeah.
on the front end of the trip, and it forced us to move around.
What went right? Not a whole lot, to be honest. um it was a grueling hunt. I kept a mileage log for each day that I was out there, and by the time I left Montana, I put on almost 60 miles on my legs, which is fine. It's a physical hunt, and I don't mind that side of things. But the fact that I put on so many miles and didn't come home with a bear just goes to show that it's not necessarily all about how deep you can get in. It's literally finding the right spots, and
Mm-hmm.
the right spot may be a mile from the road, it may be 100 yards from the road, um, or it might be 10 miles from the road. But it varies. So um, I would say the biggest thing from this hunt would be really learning experiences, learning to use different tools on e-scouting to set yourself up for success. Just because you can just look at a map, like we've said so many times. You can look at a map and it might look amazing, but when you get there, it looks completely different, and it could be completely weather and condition dependent. Um, we did lean into some local resources while we were there. Some people we know out there just saying, "Hey, we're getting our butts kicked. Do you have any tips, recommendations, or areas you would recommend or would be willing to share for us to kind of check out?" And so we have a buddy out there who was very gracious and very generous with some information. We actually met up with him in the latter part of the hunt for a couple of evenings, and he even went out with us and took us some spots. And while I didn't love the idea of having to rely on someone else to get us onto bears, and we didn't see any black bears when we were with him, even though he took us to some good spots. We did start to see maybe the kinds of areas that we should be keying in on, because we really didn't have any experience with black bears going into this. And so going with someone who's very experienced and has a lot of bears under his belt, and is a local, was very, very beneficial, I think. So I mean, I really think that speaks to how important it can be to have a hunting mentor, because in this case he really was our hunting mentor, um, in that area. And so yeah, share of knowledge is very valuable if you're trying something for the first time. And it's super fun to try and figure things out on your own, but there are some times when you can only get your butt kicked so many times before you're like, help, help please. So
Talk to me about gear just briefly. New gear on this trip, and then how are you going to switch anything up going forward?
Yeah, we have not talked about this on the podcast, and I think this is the perfect time to plug it. And you're smiling because you already know what I'm going to say. We used the new Sig Sauer Zulu 6 image stabilizing binoculars, and I don't want to touch on gear on too much, just because I don't know, I want to focus on tactics and stuff we can take away. But this is something that I am
Game
willing
changer.
to spend some time talking about, because honestly, it is, I don't want to, people throw around the term game changer a lot, and this will change the game, but
Game
honestly,
changer.
it is a game changer.
I just watched the new Weatherby spring bear hunt that they had on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
They're running the SIGs.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like,
they're so good.
You're foolish not to. You're foolish not to.
They're so good.
Mm-hmm.
The cat's out of the bag, or whatever the saying is.
Yep.
Like, this is not, we're not sponsored or anything like that.
No.
SIG, you made a good product.
Yeah, I've never
product.
owned a Sig Sauer product before. And I just have to say to all the other optics manufacturers and optics brands out there, like,
which we love, we love
other brands,
offered, but
this is your notice. Like, you got some catching up to do, because SIG has cornered the market on this. It's incredible technology. I know it's not the first image stabilizing binos out there, but they are the best. And if you don't know what we're talking about, Sig Sauer came out with these binoculars that they look kind of funky. Honestly, they kind of look like something you'd have in Star Wars, or you'd see in Star Wars. But
they look like they're from the Battle of Hoth, and they're out there in the
totally. That's exactly what it looks like.
That's exactly what it looks we should like. Paint them white. That'd be so sweet.
But they are binoculars that have an electronic component to them, where I believe they have like
a gyro inside.
Yeah, there's a gyroscope inside of the binoculars, where if you flip a switch, I wish I had them here with me.
I have mine here somewhere.
They're somewhere. If you flip the switch, yeah, you don't need to. When you flip the switch in the binoculars, it stabilizes the image inside the binoculars, where you can literally be moving your hands around like this while you're looking through binoculars, and it will be almost completely still.
There was a point where I was shivering,
mm-hmm.
like I was cold, obviously, and I flipped the switch on, and the image is as stable as what you're seeing right here on the podcast.
It's insane.
It's nuts, and I'm shivering.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely stable.
So, truth be told, I still packed my tripod on this trip, and with the thought that I'm probably going to primarily use a tripod if I use my spotting scope, because I still brought that, because I want to be able to judge bears, if they're really far away, and decide if it's a bear worth going after, if it's big enough, that kind of stuff. I don't want to shoot a bear that's the size of a golden retriever. So,
but we might have taken that on this trip, since we saw nothing.
But so I brought my tripod, and I figured, I could still use my binos on my tripod. It would just be that much more stable. It would be like perfectly still. I mean, half the time when we were going out on these evening hunts and these hikes, I left my tripod back at camp, because the binos are so stable. It's so much, it saves me, 2.5 pounds on my back, and it's one less thing I have to lug around and carry,
set up and all that.
And it's like, all I have to do is just throw up these binos, flip a switch, and we are perfectly still. It's literally like glassing off a tripod. It was.
Did you use the scan mode versus the stabilized mode?
I used scan mode the most.
Oh, I didn't use scan like at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I flip the switch on, flip it off, flip it on again, and I know that there's a little bit of it's not lag, but it's because the binos are grabbing the larger objective field and then giving you the center
Mm-hmm.
mass of that image so that it can hold it still.
Yep.
It's kind of like an interesting scroll feeling, but um, once you become like aware of it and you're using them, you're like, oh, this is completely normal. And the
Yeah.
only time I would use a tripod still is for long glassing because
Really
your
long lasting
shoulders and
sessions.
arms just die
Yeah.
from eventually you hit a
Like
threshold and you're like, man, this is burning.
if I were hunting for mule deer and doing, I mean, it's super glass intensive. I'd probably use a tripod in that situation. Just because you're glassing for such a long time. But
But it's
no,
a
I mean,
game changer.
such a game changer. I would say
You
the
have the
only
12s.
drawback, I have the 12 power.
I'm
Um,
running the 16s.
yeah, the only drawback I would say to SIG's image stabilizing binos is the field of view is pretty shrunk down from your kind of standard pair of binoculars. But at the end of the day, I would actually, I am okay with that trade off, just because if you're hand holding, especially your binoculars, there's so much shake that you're probably not catching any detail on the periphery of that field of view anyway. And with the image stabilized binos, it's just I can't say enough. I can't say enough. Maybe one of the best
When they come out
gear
with a
purchases.
larger like a 50 versus what are they 42s right now or 36s?
The ones we have the HDXs, which are the 42s. They have the HDX Pros now, which are 50s, but
Hmm.
the field of view isn't improved that much. I think the glass quality is improved, but it's also $500 more.
Yeah, I mean,
I just don't
you're not
I just don't know you're getting
if you
that value
have
back.
if you have the money, like by all means you can go out and spend it,
Hmm.
but you're going to get the same experience
Yeah.
with the Zulu 6s. So, um with all that said, did you have anything else on the trip that you'd want to change up? For me, I'm seriously starting to look at sneakers. Like I want a sneaker option
Yeah, we need to get you some lightweight synthetic boots.
because I love my Crispies, but
Hmm.
they're heavy.
They are very heavy.
So if you're putting the miles on, like if you're going to be walking, it's labor intensive for all your
They're
muscles and my feet. I got like Kevin Garnett back ends to my feet, so his basketball shoes fit me like a glove because they allow for like how the bone of my foot of my heel bows
Mhm.
out. But man,
Prominent heels, back of your heels.
yeah,
Yeah. I don't think there's truly a boot that's perfectly built for everything. I mean, you can say that about anything in with gear. There's no one thing to do everything perfectly. So,
yeah.
um, I would also, in hindsight, looking at this trip, I also would say that I think I'd prefer a lighter weight, more flexible boot for this kind of hunt. Um, I would have worn mine, but I was lending them to Micah, so
Hmm.
I was kind of stuck with my heavyweight boots, but that's okay. Um, yeah. What about you? Aside from boots, did you have any other gear things? I mean, we can both agree on the Sig Zulus, but
I haven't loved my rifle cover. It doesn't have enough stretch. My barrel length isn't crazy. I might have a 24-inch barrel on my
mm-hmm,
gun, but I ended up just pulling it over the suppressor over the glass and then over the glass instead of over the butt of the gun,
mm-hmm,
and I found that to be
adequate.
okay. Yeah, that worked.
Well, it's
Um,
protecting the things you want to protect the most, anyway, right?
yeah, but other than
Yeah.
that, I was pretty satisfied. I went fairly light with items, and it was nice having a base camp, so we weren't totally hiking
Yeah.
everything in, so that saved my back. But
Mm-hmm. I
I
think
just
if
really
there,
appreciated the tips, and like when you have somebody local that's so hospitable, man, that ministered to my heart. It was really exciting to at least have some guidance,
yeah.
and that's what I hope that anyone listening ever to us gets something of that nuance uh,
Mm-hmm.
that feeling. I want that same. That's what I'm trying to communicate. What I want people to experience. So, I hope what we're describing and walking through and talking about it is truly helpful. But then you're taking it and making it your own as well. So, like,
Hmm.
take what works for you. If you're hunting in Idaho or Colorado or some of these other places that I haven't been to yet, each experience is gonna be different. Arizona is gonna be way different.
Hmm.
You're still gonna have mountains, but yeah, I haven't been there, so I can't speak to those. I can speak more to Montana and Wyoming now because I have hunts under my belt and I like that. But um, I realize I don't need as much gear as I have.
Yeah.
I'll be moving on from some pants, from some different layers that I plan to sell, and
Hmm.
I think that's a great thing. I'm like,
Yeah.
I know what I like and what fits and works.
You really get dialed in. I think for me, I on this trip in particular, I think I just packed too much food, and I really try and live by like a 3,000 calorie a day calorie intake goal when I pack my food, and usually ends up being two, maybe a little over 2 pounds of food per day. But I've just found that I just never eat that much. I don't know how I could. Like you're just I'd be eating constantly. And so I think I can probably cut down on my food, especially hunt dependent, depends on how, physically demanding the hunt is. You're going to, have a higher calorie expenditure. So I think that was another takeaway. I think I just carried too much food with me. So I could probably lighten my pack a fair amount by cutting that a little bit.
For Wyoming, I'd really like to pack, like, it's stupid to say, but like a cast iron pan and grab some
Add
brats and
Just
or
add
some
like
meat.
10 pounds to your
Well,
pack.
I mean, if we're not going in crazy far, if we're going to do our mile and a half in, or give or take what we're planning to do, uh, with our plan, or if we end up deciding to do some sort of, well, no, we're not going to do a base camp, but I don't know. I just want to like diversify some food. I want to throw some
Yeah.
potatoes in there and get a warm meal. And like, it's not that crazy to think of if you pack some potatoes and some brats and you're able to cook that up on the stove. It doesn't have to be a cast iron. It could be, you know, tin or something, titanium or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it'd be kind of fun too. It'd be a boost for morale, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Would
All
you do it
right.
again? Would you do it again? Same spot, different spots? Because I loved the area. I don't think it was. I think I just approach things differently if I went back to where we
Yeah.
were originally.
I would do it again for sure. I hope to. I again, I feel like we learned a lot this trip, and if I had known the things I know now, the first couple of days, I think that would have probably changed the calculus of how things went a little bit. Um, we still know right where a real big Bruin is. And from the size of him and from the sign that we saw and everything, I don't think anyone's messed with him in a long time.
To
And
be honest, if you and I go next year, I'd spend a day or two hiking up there. If like, because I know we know right where he's at.
mhm,
He's just hard to get to.
yep, and that's why he's old and has never been killed. Truth be
He
told,
he, he was definitely a bruiser. It was too easy to discern that. It's like that's
yep,
a big guy.
he had that swagger to him a little bit.
Didn't have a
Yeah,
care in the world. Just got his nose in the dirt, pulling roots, eating flowers.
it's awesome. That's awesome.
So
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun, and I think it is a fun change of pace, especially in the spring. You're a few months removed from the previous fall hunting season, and the next hunting season and everything. It's a change of pace from turkeys, which is a completely different experience, and it's just fun to be able to get out west and kind of get into that backcountry wilderness type of hunt. It's just there's nothing like it.
yep. Anything else?
No, I
This can
mean,
be a shorter episode, I think.
yeah, it will be a shorter one. It seems like.
I appreciate you. Thanks for driving all my gear out there. Should we give some shout outs? Should we do some of those? Thanks for our local resident. I'm not going to name his name, but
he'll be on the podcast eventually.
Appreciate you.
We've invited him, and he agreed to come on. So
Nick, you did well. It was nice to have some new blood on a trip, and I appreciate you hanging back when my blisters were literally bleeding through my boots. And Micah, what a splendid guy! What a fun time! You added a whole new dynamic.
He brought the energy. He did great. He kept up.
That is you.
Yeah, he kept up. He did awesome. Yeah, it was super fun having him along. Because to remind the audience, Micah is not a hunter. He is not a hunter. He was just there for the experience, and he seemed like he had a great time. I think he was very surprised by, the some of the things we ran into, whether that be animals or weather or just kind of how crazy.
I smoked him out in the tent because the fire died in the middle of the night, and I woke up. I was like, oh, it's chilly. And I tried to get it going again, but I may have blown a little too hard into the stove, and ash came out, and it was a rough go. I tried to get that stupid thing started for like 20 minutes, and
in the middle of the night, not fun.
He woke up to nothing but fire or smoke filling our tent. So
yeah, we both of our tents had because we had two separate teepee tents with stoves in them, and the problem that we ran into is that ours got so hot that the ground underneath the stove caught on fire in the middle of the night, and so I woke up and it was getting really smoky in there, and I was like, why is it so smoky in here? Like, our fire's been fine, we've been feeding it, it's good, and we can't figure it out. And all of a sudden I noticed that the smoke is kind of like billowing from underneath the stove, and then all of a sudden it just lit, and the entire tent was just aglow from the flames that were coming up and around our stove. And luckily I had my my water bottle next to me, and so I dumped all my water on the fire to put it out, and that seemed to do the trick. But after that, we were pretty furiously digging with sticks underneath that stove to create a little more space between the bottom of it and the ground.
Oh, there's a gear thing I didn't think about. We need to get those spark container things for the top of the stoves, because we got some holes in the tents.
Yeah, there were some little pinholes on our tents from the sparks coming out the stovepipe. That is annoying, but now we know.
Well, with that said, let's just end. What's our next hunt? It's fall hunt for muleys in Wyoming, right?
Well, that's our next western hunt. Yeah, going out west for some mule deer. But aside from that, I mean, I think next official opener would be dove.
Ooh, we're gonna have to get some fishing in before that. We gotta drop the boat in and get some. I got guys sending me stinking pictures of fish almost every day now, and I'm not joking. They're like, "I've caught too many. You need to come over and eat these."
Hey, have a good old fashioned fish fry. Good old Minnesota fish fry.
It was so good. I went like I don't know 3 weeks ago, right before Montana. So it was really delicious.
Awesome. Well, like always, thanks for listening. Be sure to check out our social media. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We do have a YouTube channel where some of you might be watching on YouTube right now, because we do release the video version of these podcasts on YouTube. If you're just listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of the other streaming platforms, if you want to see our ugly mugs while you're listening to us talk, you can find us on YouTube. And then also, we just recently got a TikTok. I avoided it for as long as I could, but you can't beat them, join them, right? So we are on TikTok.
Wherever you social, you can find us.
Yeah, so you can find some fun content on TikTok as well. So, but yeah, thanks for joining us, guys. We really appreciate the support. Go check us out on our website, www.readysethunt.org. And shoot us a message, DM, email if you like what you hear. Tell us what you want to hear. But other than that, Chris, I think we did it.
Catch you later.
Signing off. Shortest episode yet.